Welcome to EduRev. I'm your teacher for this explainer, and today we are going to absolutely dismantle the beast that is UCAT verbal reasoning. We're going to build a strategy so you're not just surviving this section, you're actually beating that clock.
I'm so glad you're here. Seriously, because over the next few minutes, I'm going to share my personal playbook for taking what feels like the most stressful, time crunch part of the UCAT and turning it into something you can actually control.
You know that feeling, right, where your heart starts pounding as you're staring at this massive wall of text and you've only got seconds to answer? Yeah, you're not alone. That feeling of being totally overwhelmed is normal, but it's also a feeling we're going to fix, starting right now.
So, here's our roadmap for the day. First, we nail down the core logic, the true, false, or can't tell foundation. Then I'll teach you my go-to pacing strategy, what I call the 30-second triage rule. We'll even set up an emergency plan for when you feel that time crisis creeping in. After that, we'll look at how to master the statement questions for some easy wins, and finally, we'll wrap it all up into your final game plan for test day.
Okay, let's get into it. Before we even dream of going fast, we have to be rock solid on the basic logic. Because every single verbal reasoning question, no matter how complicated it looks, boils down to one of these three options. First up, the easy one, true. This is when you can literally point to a sentence or a phrase in the passage that directly supports the statement. It's right there in black and white, no question about it.
Next, we have false. This isn't just a lack of support, it's a direct contradiction. The passage says up and the statement says down. The text actively proves the statement is wrong.
And here's the sneakiest one of them all, can't tell. This is your answer when the statement requires you to make an assumption or use outside knowledge. The passage doesn't support it, but it doesn't deny it either. It's just not in there. You have to be super disciplined and only use the information given.
So this really simplifies things, right? For pretty much every question, you're looking for one thing, the answer that matches. The other options will either be the opposite of what's in the text or rely on outside information. Just remember MOO, matches, opposite, outside. That's the whole game.
Awesome. Now that we have the logic down, it's time to add the secret sauce, speed. But listen, this isn't about reading like a machine. It's about thinking strategically. And that brings us to the most important strategy I can teach you, the 30-second triage rule.
I want you to burn this number into your brain. 30 seconds. That is the absolute maximum time you are allowed to spend on any single question before you make a decision. This is your new non-negotiable rule.
So how does this work in practice? Simple. Step 1, you read the question and you hunt for those keywords in the passage. You give yourself a hard stop at 30 seconds. If you think you're close but you're not sure, make your best guess, flag it, and move on. But, and this part is crucial, if you can't find the keywords and you feel lost, you have to have the discipline to just skip it and come back later.
Now there's a little nuance here. You definitely want to use this to triage the really tricky questions. You know, the ones with vague language. But don't just automatically skip a question because it looks long. If it's packed with specific keywords, names, dates, places, that can actually be a gift because it makes finding the answer a lot faster.
Okay, but what happens when things go wrong? Even with the best strategy, sometimes you look up and realize, oh no, the clock is beating me. It happens to everyone. But panicking isn't a plan. Having a crisis plan is.
So, forget 30 seconds. When you're in crisis mode, your new magic number is 15. The goal shifts. It's no longer about getting everything perfect, it's about grabbing as many points as you can with the time you have left. The whole pace just has to change. So, here's the emergency procedure. You've got 15 seconds, you're going to scan and eliminate anything that just feels wrong. Trust your gut, make a quick, educated guess, and then you move on, immediately. The golden rule here, you absolutely must answer every single question. A guess is infinitely better than an empty answer box.
Okay, so we've talked about defense. Now let's go on the offense. The best way to avoid a time crisis in the first place is to bank extra time early on. And the way we do that is by finding our easy wins.
This is a total game changer. Those true, false, can't tell statement questions, once you get good at them, you can knock out a lot of them in just 10 to 15 seconds. Think about that. Every single question you answer that fast is like putting bonus time back on the clock for the harder ones.
And if you look at this chart, you can see that these types of questions make up a huge chunk of the available marks. By getting incredibly fast at that high-speed slice, those statement questions, you build a massive time buffer for everything else.
All right, let's pull all of these pieces together. We're going to create one simple, clear game plan that you can take into every practice test and, of course, the real thing.
When you boil it all down, it comes down to 2 golden rules for your timing. Rule number 1, you get a maximum of 2 minutes for an entire passage and all its questions. Rule number 2, you get a maximum of 30 seconds for any individual question. That's it. These are the numbers you have to live by.
And please, please remember this quote. I want this to sink in. Even when you are executing your strategy perfectly, verbal reasoning is still going to feel rushed. That's normal. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, it just means you're doing the UCAT. Accepting that is so important for staying calm.
So, let's do a quick-fire recap of the playbook. You're going to triage everything with the 30-second rule. You're going to have that 15-second crisis plan ready to go, just in case. And you're going to hunt down those statement questions to get those easy, time-saving wins.
So, you've got the strategy, you've got the rules, you've got a plan for any situation. There's only one thing left to do now, and that's to put it into action. So are you ready to practice this until it becomes second nature?
Because the only way to really master this stuff is with timed practice.